speaking today regarding Bosch Video Management System, we'll call it BVMS for short, is Mr. Brad Castillo. He's our technical lead at Chesapeake Mid-Atlantic Marketing. Brad is our technical expert on the Bosch Video Management System. Came to Mid-Chest from Bosch as a technical expert. He's way freaking smarter than I am, and that's not hard to do.
So smart.
So let's give it up for Brad and pay attention.
Thank you, Rick. Hear me okay? Perfect. First, I want to thank everybody for coming out, spending time with us today, tomorrow, however long you're going to be here. I really appreciate it. I know everybody else does, to get a glimpse on what's coming, what's here. So I really appreciate everybody taking time. I know everybody has really, really busy schedules to keep right now. So again, we really appreciate it. Today, what we're going to do is take a look at past, present, future, right? Where we've been, where we're at now, where we're looking ahead. Okay, so at any time, like Rick said, if you have a question, it's informal. Interrupt me. I'm fine with that. So we'll anything I can't tackle, please let's follow up after this, and we can make sure we get you the answer you need. Okay. A little bit about me. Rick gave you a little bit of history, but I started off in the industry with Bosch. Technical support, which is the now L2 group. Back then we weren't an L2 group. We answered the phones, right? That's no longer the case, but that's where I started. So me and some other individuals that are here were part of that original team. Spent 10 years there with the group, and my primary focus was BVMS IP video systems back to VDOS days, which I don't know if anybody remembers VDOS, but back when everything first started. So I've seen it progress all the way through to where it is now. Left Bosch, went with an integrator, spent a couple years with them, 3 years with them, and my goal with that was to get a better understanding of the industry, right? I wanted to experience more beyond Bosch at that time to just broaden my horizon, understand what's out there, what works with what. So we did that, got some certifications on stuff, and now with Mid-Chest for about 2.5 years. I've known these guys since I was at Bosch, so it was the right fit for me, and it's a great thing. So we're chugging along, and so if anybody ever has support questions or anything like that, technical type questions that you need or will need to ask of Mid-Chest, please, my contact information is downstairs. You can visit me personally. I'll give you my card if you don't have it already. And happy to help with anything you guys may have. What I want everybody to take away is, if you're not familiar with BVMS, BVMS is a holistically redundant system. So there's multiple aspects to the VRM environment: management server, video recording manager. But what's important is that the system remains running. If, for whatever reason, we lose servers, the system has the ability to continue to recording. Cameras can continue to record with both the management server and VRM servers down up to 7 days. So redundancy is a big player here, and we're only expanding. We can go now in an enterprise environment up to 200,000 cameras, 100 clients, and then across the board, just really implementing more feature sets and data security requirements. So any questions like that as far as what this system is capable of, please let us know so we can show you. So diving into history, we're going to jump clear back to 2011. I'm not going to read everything, don't worry about it. But back in 2011, we were at BVMS 3.0, where we made a big press from 500 camera max to 2,000. That's where that first happened. From there, 4.0 in 2012, and went to enterprise, and you can see, we're introducing some feature sets in 2015, panel integration, right? OnViv type events in 2015, 6.5, panoramic improvements in de-warping. As we progress through here, we start seeing things like, I don't know, I'll read it, but we start seeing things like encrypted communication. We start seeing things like secure remote access. We start seeing things as we progress through the years that relate around data security. And that's one of the key things that I want everybody to pull away from this, is data security. That coupled with consistent release cycles. As we progress through this, and everybody needs to be taking this into account with their systems, whether it's BVMS or not, is data security. That's the big thing that everybody needs to be thinking about, because if you're not, get on board with it. We're going to go into more on that tomorrow morning with David Brent, who will be here talking about some of that. And if anybody has taken any courses with Dave, it's going to be interesting. So strap in for that one, or two actually. He has two back-to-back classes. So, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody a glimpse of what Bosch is seeing as an important piece of their VMS system. And this is from the VMS. I mean, we still have cameras, firmware, doing data security lockdowns from the endpoint devices, right? This is from the VMS side, but you have to have both. You have to secure both sides. So this is literally just to prove that, that's our focus in moving forward, with addition to bringing in some feature sets. So the rest of this is going to be primarily features, what came with 11, what 11.1 is going to come, and then a couple sneak peeks that I got for 12. Okay, but we'll go from there. BVMS 11.0. I don't know if anybody really got a chance to play with 11 yet, or is at 11. It's downstairs, so we can get a more hands-on approach if you guys have any specific questions. Again, if there's something more custom to what you guys are doing for your individual sites, or just general questions or issues that you have that maybe we can answer, please let us know. We'll set something up. We'll try and mimic the setup as best as we can, and we'll work through it. So the big thing with 11.0 was the new map-based tracking. The new map-based tracking assistant is to give the operators the ability to track individuals or objects through the system without having to know where every camera in the logical tree is sitting. It can be difficult, especially for new operators who are trying to get used to the system. Knowing where each and every camera is some of these logical trees can get pretty large. Where everything is difficult to manage sometimes. So, like it says, help operators track moving objects and persons across multiple cameras. I'll have an example video here in a couple slides, but basically what will happen is you will pinpoint, or a selected camera will be a camera of focus. There's a button that now exists in the operator client that will initiate the map-based tracking. That then becomes your primary camera focus. The next thing that will happen is, based on the map that you build requirement, you configure a map. These outside cameras here are populated based on where they're located on the map. So it's going to pull in the closest cameras to the main focus camera. That way, if an object or a person walks into those other areas, all you have to do is double click on that next one. That next one then becomes the area of focus. Okay, so you can do this in playback. Some of the playback features, obviously, you can't move a PTZ in playback, right? Because that's already been recorded. But it works similarly in playback to replay through an event.
Brad, how many cameras can you put in that?
It's gonna pick your primary and then the four closest.
Primary.
So everything that, and also keep in mind, if there's a PTZ part of this equation, if my area of focus is a fixed camera, it's going to pull a PTZ that's in the vicinity, like if it's one of the four that are closest, and it's going to move that device over to that area. So it's already going to be waiting in case you need to track something. So when we talk about map-based tracking, what's all different? We still have the offline usage of maps. Which offline usage of maps is a regular map structure right now. We're talking, JPEG, PNG, PDF imports for irregular maps, right? But now we're introducing the online GIS maps. They're called HERE maps. They're online maps. A lot of people will, HERE maps are updated more frequently than, let's say, like Google Earth, right? I think HERE maps are on like a 3-month update cycle or something like that. And Google Maps are a lot longer. And then also the map-based tracking. So to get online maps and map-based tracking, they are licenses. So ask us about those. But once you initiate online maps, there's actually, you can do satellite view, you can do dark street or light street. Okay, so there's a couple different modes you can do. Activating these, I think, is important, and it's been a question I've had already, does not affect the maps we've already configured. So if we want to utilize this, we can enable it. If you guys have, devices on existing maps, this is not going to wipe the slate and make you start over. That's an important piece of that. So what I'm going to do now is show you guys kind of a video example of this, if I can get to it. And I might pause it during here to just kind of explain, because I know some people in the back may not be able to see this. So in this example, just so everybody's on the same page, the operator, or this client specifically, not viewing anything specific, what's going to happen is there's going to be an individual that walks into the scene. That individual is going to set off an IVA alarm. Okay, we'll have the systems programmed to have that IVA alarm basically go full screen into the operators, grab their attention, and then what they'll do is they'll initiate the map-based tracking, and that will pull in the surrounding cameras so that they can track the individual. See an example of that. So as you can see here, I think first we're gonna go over. You can also, it's an interactive map, so you can move the PTZ around without actually having to do it on the video screen. You can just click within the vicinity that the camera is configured for to be able to, it's viewing. So here's our individual walking up to the door. Caused an IVA alarm, right? Full screen. And then we're going to come up here, we're going to hit this map-based tracking assistant. That's going to create that focus camera that we were just talking about, 4 corresponding cameras. And they'll be labeled A, B, C, and D. That's how they exist on the map, so that's not something that's overlaid. Once that individual moves into another area, double click, it's not a single click, double click onto the next area, camera of focus. That will then take this place. And then this will be updated again for the surrounding devices. So it makes it a lot easier for users to be able to track this individual through the scenes. And then what will happen here is this is going to be our next area, our camera focus, and it's set up to use auto track. And that camera is going to track that individual all the way through until they're stopped. So it kind of just changes the way we're having operators track individuals, and it'll take some time. Obviously, there's training, but I think it's a useful tool. Like I said, aside from having to know, if I have hundreds and hundreds of cameras in this list, that's difficult to do for anyone, really. Anybody have any questions on map-based tracking?
CPP level, Brown?
This is VMS based.
Just VMS based. Okay.
Yeah. So any of the devices that you got in here will work.
Don't say anything.
Yeah. Well,
CPP for itself, baby. Yeah.
it'll do it. Trust me. All right, so iterative improvements from 11.0. These are some other enhancements that 11.0 is brought, and we'll go through that. First one is VRM. So VRM got some rework done. Our existing limits were, for example, 2 petabytes. VRM was that had a max storage of 2 petabytes per VRM server. We've now moved that to 4 petabytes with multiple VRMs available per BVMS environment. So we're, believe it or not, getting to that point where maxing out limits of petabytes in storage. Along with the fact that now that there's 16 terabyte disks for hard drives or for iSCSI storage, so that's playing a big role. 254 LUNs per disk array is the limit. By default, I know this is getting kind of technical weeds here, but 2 terabytes is what each LUN is by default configured for on our iSCSI targets. That's configurable for large LUN support as long as the devices in the pool support it. That means the cameras in the pool have to be able to support LUN sizes greater than 2 terabytes. That's something that if we have questions on that we want to use that, please let us know so we can make sure that we're going to be okay. VRM also got a new VRM monitor rebuild. Previously, in VRM monitor, for those of you who don't know, is a web-based tool that will allow you to easily see the status of the system. I know it's hard to see from over there, but this will give you total number of cameras, how many are actively recording, how many are offline, what's your total storage, everything like that. So it's going to give you a quick and easy dashboard to see what the health status of your system is. And then everything now, previously we had to go into a monitoring pages. Now everything's just right here on the left, easy to get to. Notification when cameras are losing recording. I had to get a little bit clarification on how this all works, but what will happen is now we can alert you on if there was data loss from a device. If the camera loses a connection to its recording target, cameras based on their type, how they're recording, so frames per second, all this stuff plays in an account, right? Will record and buffer video into memory and then replenish that automatically. This is without an SD card or using ANR. This is something that'll happen. So here's an example. I started recording 7:25. iSCSI was disconnected at 7:30, and then iSCSI was reconnected at 7:51. We would think that's 21 minutes of lost video, but in this case, the camera buffered 18 minutes. So we only had a recording loss of 3 minutes. Okay? And then BVMS, what it does, it'll give you those time frames at the bottom here. So that's something you can now monitor.
You can still put in an SD card.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't lose any.
Correct. Yeah, so you can still
You can
do.
use both, so the SD card will pick up those 3 minutes, and then
Well, if you're using an SD card, that's writing at the same time. So, and anything that gets gapped gets refilled into VRM. So now in 11.0 as well, we have for the DVR IP series products, we can do monitoring. So SNMP, that's built in now. So we have some features here that are built in.
The traps are already defined.
They're already defined. The only thing that you have to do on the DVR IPs, but there's an application that drives these SNMP traps, right? And you have to just go in and enable that and point it back to your server. And that way those traps are coming in. So, for example, CPU critical, just basic temperature, whatever, you can pull all those metrics in now.
And that feature, you could shut off SNMP as far as collection is concerned.
Correct.
If you wanted to. Okay.
Correct, yeah. This all was a manual process prior to 11,
Right,
so
right. You
yeah, they're
have to
built in, and you just have to enable it. Yep. Another feature, part of 11, is the export video footage split file size. Basically what that means is prior to now, you had for anything that was MOV or MP4 formats, the max size was 700 meg. That was in place because a CD at forever, 700 meg, right? So I don't know who's burning. There's still some people burning the disc, but what you can now do is change that size. So if I needed an MOV, I'm gonna put it to a USB or something like that. I can change that now up to 10 gig. So you're going to get splits beyond 10 gig, but instead of having, if it's less than 10 and having multiple 2-minute clips, that goes away. So that's a big thing there. Obviously, for disabled, or the field is disabled for native exports because the native's not restricted to that size.
There's no compression. Right?
Correct. The big one we pushed for. This was actually something that a customer of ours had also brought to light. They're in this room. But so restriction of video. This was something that was always an option in operator client, but it wasn't a functionable option. This restriction of video came from the DVAR product line, the actual recorders. You could restrict video on those devices, and it only applied to those devices when operating through BVMS. So now we moved that into being a feature of VRM. So you can highlight a section of video now, and you can restrict that. There's multiple reasons why that's important. Previous to now, you would either have to, if let's say you had a group, you didn't want everybody to be able to see a scene or an incident that happened, you'd either have to pull replay permissions away from that user group entirely, or export that clip and delete it. That's no longer the case. So what we can do is we can highlight a section of video, restrict it, and anybody with the restriction permission, any user group with a restriction permission, are the only ones that are able to see that. If you don't have the restriction permission to be able to view restricted video, that will just be a marked out place in the timeline. It's permission based.
Like password or anything like that.
Correct. Yeah. So the user group has to have the permission to be able to see it.
Hey, Brad. On that timeline, does that show restricted that everybody would see? Or
It'll show dashes on the timeline. There's that. So there's, without knowing, it looks no different than if you would protect video. So it's different, but I think it's a backslash to a forward slash. So you can tell that it's different, but it doesn't hide, or it's obvious, right, that something's different for that one part. But
that restriction, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
That restriction would also limit its ability if it were to export. If we exporting in mass, it would exclude that.
Correct. Without, if you didn't have the permission,
To define it.
correct.
Okay.
The user doing the export would have to have permission to be able to get that clip
Okay.
in an export.
So it'd be blank if somebody.
Correct. Yeah, that part would be skipped.
Does restrict automatically protect?
No. Two different things.
That's interesting. That's actually like restricting and protecting it instead of being
Two different things.
be one. Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind repeating the question without the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Rich's question is if you restrict video, a video segment, does it automatically protect that video? And the answer is no. It'll restricting. There's two different things. Restricting is just limiting access to that segment. Protecting means I'm keeping that segment indefinitely. It doesn't apply to the max retention rules of VRM. So it's going to stay there until someone actually unprotects it. If we went that route, then it's possible we'd be filling up chunks and just, if no one goes to unprotect them, we're losing just overall storage capabilities. Or any other questions on restriction? Nope. All right, so I'm going to kind of just briefly go in now to 11.1, and I don't have a bunch of snapshots, but I'll tell you what's coming, what's planned. So that 11.1's planned December this year, released by the end of the year. Person identification tracking, version 2 for whitelisting. Token-based authentication for operator clients. This is important because a user has a token. Once that token is void, no, you're not accessing the system anymore. CPP14 support for third stream functionality. Downstairs we have a lot of the newer CPP14 platform. I know it may not reside with everybody what that actually is, but what it is a new product line that gives you triple streaming. So full stream support, stream 1, 2, and 3. This is going to fully support that. Okay. There's going to be a new look and feel of configuration client. Frank, I'm sorry, I don't know what it looks like yet. I don't know what it looks like yet. So we're going to have a facelift on that. New and intuitive event search feature and timeline improvements. The timeline improvement is important. That's going to be color-coded timelines based on motion or alarms. Okay, so that's coming.
I don't have to go to that drop down that says alarm.
No, you're gonna see it.
All together.
Yeah.
It's magical.
So that'll be a nice improvement there. It's going to allow you to easily identify where motion was in timelines, where an alarm event happened, versus selecting a timeline span and doing a manual search. FIPS 201 compliance is going to be introduced there. This is important for obviously anybody government using PIV cards and two-factor authentication for systems, right? So VRM export wizard improvements. VRM export tool is a way that we can mass export video data from the system across multiple cameras. If I had a week's worth of video data that I needed from 20 cameras, it would take a very, very long time for an operator client to do. So we have VRM export wizard has been around for quite a while, and that's how we would accomplish that. We would export this mass amount of data in a native format, and then you can use operator client or the export client from BVMS to replay that and then actually pull out what you need. But for time-sensitive incidents, this is a great way to pull or extract out from the system before it's overwritten everything that you may need. You may not know it yet. So now we're going to have scheduled exports of video footage, which is something that I know has been a request for a while. So we'll be able to
Scheduled exports of video footage en masse. So what's the use case there? Like, I'm not understanding what
Backups.
Schedule. Oh, for backups.
Backups.
So in case your retention period
Correct.
doesn't meet the standard.
Yep,
Store it offsite or colo it and then keep live and okay.
that's correct.
I mean that's interesting.
Yeah. So let's see. Anything else I may want to cover on that? There's going to be a list of other improvements on that, but that's primarily what was given to me. So, any questions on what 11.1 is going to have?
Reverse, like if I wanted to use the current export wizard, right, or the current tool with 11.1 and backtrack to my 3.8 or 3.7.1, like the ARMs, if I wanted the mass export.
Well, the export tools, yeah, it's not.
So it's not going to.
Correct. I use current version export tools with older version
with
VRMs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll work. Okay, and then sneak peek. We're almost done. Sneak peek to 12.0, which is projected for Q3 2022. Person tracking. So we're going to have more of an autonomized method, still somewhat manual, but this is the, I guess, storyboarding, right? I want to be able to track an individual through the system. This is not like map-based tracking. This is going to be more intuitive, right? This is going to be more of an automated type method. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but this is coming. This is something that's on the roadmap.
I think Session was talking about object flow, determining object flow in the field of view.
Correct.
Sticking with it.
Yep. What I just said, anonymization for person tracking. So, yeah. So it's going to use AI algorithms to hide. This is going to be more of sensitive type material, hiding faces, hiding plates automatically. Okay, that's something that's going to be enrolled out in BVMS 12.
At the VMS level to be able
Correct,
to
on the VMS
masking
level.
and stuff like that. Okay.
Correct. Configuration audit trail. The audit trail now, really, we can look through the logbook and we can kind of put together what happened maybe, but this is going to allow us to run a report on what was changed by who. And
What
then
will it break down the
it's gonna-
iterations of change
that's
within the
correct.
same
It's gonna break-
configuration Bosch
correct.
show us?
it's going to log every step of every change.
Instead of us having to dig in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so this is going to make it a lot easier on figuring out what happened, what was changed. When we get the question, what was changed,
There's
You know,
no-
now we're gonna
there's no
have some
line.
proof.
Gotcha. No.
and finally, we're going to, again, like I was saying earlier, enhance VRM with some further encryption and communication improvements. So VRM, as it is now, can do encrypted recording, but I think it's important to know that the Bosch proprietary way of recording in itself is, I can't take it's not recording in like an AVI format. There's no real way for me to piece together, if I actually looked at the raw data, piece together a time, date, camera, or anything like that, and be able to replay it. You have to use a player, a Bosch player, proprietary player, to view any of that. This just takes that a step further and encrypts that. So tomorrow morning, we're going to open up with Sir David Brent. He's going to be mad that I pulled that off the internet. But so David is our Bosch's senior cyber data security technical instructor. He's published countless documents, very, very smart individual, good friend of mine. I highly recommend, if you're going to be here tomorrow, to sit in on these because they're going to be eye-opening for you. Okay. This first one, he's really going to kind of take it easy and show you how to lock down cameras in conjunction with the VMS side of things. That really buttons that up, make sure that your video system is secure. And this one is going to be a deeper dive. That deeper dive is going to get into the weeds a little bit, but trust me, it's worth it. So, does anybody have any further questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Rich.
Are there any plans to add any sort of feature where it's possible to easily pixel in a whole bunch of faces other than the target and recording video?
I'll have to look that up for you as far as the anonymization that they're planning to release for 12.
Working for a school system, I've frequently required
Right.
dozens of faces have to be blurred in real time.
Okay.
Very difficult.
Okay. I'll take that back. Anybody else have any other questions?
I would just like to add that happy hour starts in 15 minutes downstairs. So you're between us and drinks downstairs. So
Perfect.